everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of How Did We Get Here? This is the Facebook and YouTube Live show that I designed to bring you face to face with some of the people that I have worked with and touched over the past 14 years. Lord, every time I say it, it makes me feel old. I don't make this up. This is my real reaction every time. Over the past 14 years of my entrepreneurial journey of helping visionary people and dream builders bring their visions, their ideas, their dreams out of their heads and into the world to benefit all of you. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit today. Every time I do this, I do a weekly nugget. This week, my weekly nugget for you is this. As we're at the end of the year, as we're coming to this point at the end of 2021, can y'all believe that? 2021 is like over. The nugget that I have for you this week is no detour is wasted. It absolutely does not matter. If you feel like choices that you've made over the course of the last several years, 10 years, 20 years, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you feel like you've made a choice that feels like a misstep. Nothing about your life is wasted. If you went one way first and then decided you were going a different way, we call that the pivot, right? It doesn't matter what's changed. Everything that you've done, everything that you've engaged in and engaged with has deep and significant value. And I hope through this show, you start to see how you can take a little piece from here and a little piece from here and a little piece from somewhere else, right? And cobble it into a life that you get to live every day that feels like the absolute life of your dreams. So that is it. We're closing out the year almost on this thing. Make sure you're reflecting on that. No detour in your life is wasted. So today I am super duper blessed. Oh, right. Thanks for that. Make sure you share this video with somebody else to inspire them. We want to get as many eyeballs on this as we possibly can. We want people to feel motivated and inspired with like wisdom and more information to be able to make good choices for themselves. So this week, I am super blessed to be able to have with me in the studio, we'll talk about that later, Dr. Brian J. Olds. He is the founder of Black Speakers Network, and I'm going to bring him up onto the stage. But first, we're going to give you this really quick video. Finally, you're honest with yourself, like that's not my path. That's not what's for me. Okay, but then what is for me? You're human, you are living, you are breathing, you deserve to live a life you absolutely love. You must believe you are here for a reason. That purpose thing, that sucker sits on the inside of us just waiting for an opportunity to scream out. So now what? What's my next step? So here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Brian J. Olds. Brian is coming to us. He is the founder and CEO of Black Speakers Network. He is an expert in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. He is a 3 times published, 2 times Amazon bestselling author. He's written forwards for books. He's known internationally, and most recently was awarded an honorary doctorate, which we're going to get into at some point in this story. If that resume does not impress you, I do not know what will. Brian J. Olds, welcome to How Did We Get Here?
Shauna K, thank you so much. 3 things. Number 1, you are absolutely invited to introduce me anywhere in 2022 and beyond. Number 2, everybody on the planet should be inspired by this show to elevate the production value of anything that they're doing in 2022. And number 3, it's super excited to be here. And I am been watching your past episodes and just been inspired by the individuals that you are consistently pouring into, myself included. So looking forward to a great conversation.
Yeah, me too. You were, when I first thought of this show, there were some people that were like really easy for me to say, I'm going to beg and plead to get on these schedules before the end of 2021. And you were definitely one that came up to the top. I think the common thread for all of you, and also thank you, by the way, that's a shout out to my producers. They are back there killing the game. And so I feel like one common thread is just that all of you have had such interesting journeys to get to this point. And I think what's most interesting is that at this point in your life, everybody's looking at you and they're like, well, that's Dr. Brian J. Olds. He's always been Dr. Brian J. Olds. He's always been, at the top of the thing, always leading, always connecting, always inspiring people. And maybe not, right? So I want to kind of get right. So I want to kind of get into this conversation. And I want you to take me back to, I don't know. I almost want to start with one of these pictures. I think I will. Okay. So the producers are back there going, Lord, Shauna, that's the one. So I want to start with this skills picture. Talk us through what was happening at this point in your life. This is the Brian J. Olds throwback edition.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so skills is first of all, the gentleman in the photo, that's Jonathan Pasley. So he is very connected to this story as well. Jonathan and I met in college through an organization called Toastmasters, which we can get into a little bit. But this is my first company. This was like young Brian. I believe this picture was taken in 2010. So well over 10 years ago. And this was my first baby. Skills stood for, as an acronym. We know how you love acronyms, Shauna. It was sharing knowledge and information for lifelong success. I thought we were fresh with the holding down the acronym game. But essentially, this was my first company. We, as you can see kind of on the banner here, we were focused on professional development, personal growth, networking, and leadership. And, skills is really where I cut my teeth as an entrepreneur. I met Jonathan, as I mentioned, at Morgan State University. I identify as an introvert now. I mean, you've seen me walk around with my certified introvert t-shirts on. And so I was absolutely the guy that was voted least likely to stand in front of an audience and lead them anywhere. And so at Morgan, I think I kind of went on this journey of, wanting to be an engineer, which I know you successfully went through the engineering school.
Right.
I got lots of respect for you. My exit, you talk about no detours wasted. Like my detour was right at Calculus 2. And I was like, let me just go see what the School of Business is talking about. And I was at kind of really one of the lowest points of my life in terms of just feeling lost. Like I felt like I was a failure, felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I really wasn't sure what my future held. And so that time at Morgan State University really, really helped to mold who I eventually became. But skills was actually birthed out of our Toastmasters, which for those that don't know, Toastmasters is it's a global organization focused on helping you develop your communication and leadership skills. We started a chapter at Morgan, and skills was birthed out of that because I really wanted to do something where, seeing all this incredible Black talent that were speaking, I really wanted to do something to encapsulate that. So that picture, you definitely dug into the archives to get that, but that holds a lot of significance to me.
I love that though. And I think that part is important because people need to know where you started, as we're kind of just like tracking your timeline. And even in that, even in talking about creating skills out of Toastmasters, I always tell people when we're building brands and developing companies and that kind of thing, that there's no point in building something if you're not going to show up very authentically and kind of as yourself for your own reasons. Because there's 300,000 of everything. There's nothing new under the sun. I'm pretty sure that's in the Bible somewhere, like Proverbs or something. So that's been since the beginning of all time. Like there's literally nothing new under the sun once you get through, one generation. So I guess what I really want to know is what made you feel like skills, which was really a development company, right? Like what made it necessary when there were so many? Why did you feel like you had something to contribute still?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, trying to carve out that area of expertise, and I think in a lot of cases, with new entrepreneurs, you find yourself in this position, like there's always two things that you could look at. You look at who you are internally, like what are your skills, what are your passions, what are the things that you are an expert in, and what can you bring to the table? And then you also look out into the world and ask questions like, hey, what are people struggling with? What are the needs? And what are people paying for? And, how can we monetize? And I think for me, my starting of skills was more so, it was deeply rooted in the first category, like the internal journey. And I know this because we made absolutely no money. Like skills was not a profitable company. I I pumped a lot of my, I was working full time for a staffing recruiting agency at the time. I started right out of college. And so, we were rolling around Baltimore hosting events in the basement of like Good Samaritan Hospital. Like it was not a cash cow by any means necessary, but what it represented was two things. Number one, uh, particularly coming from this space where I feel like, oh, I thought I was going to be an engineer. I'm not an engineer. What do I
Right.
do? So it
Right.
gave me a proving ground to be able to stretch outside the comfort zone of Toastmasters and begin to start to build my network, to create systems, which I love systems, to create infrastructure and really start pressure testing, what we could accomplish. And so, although it wasn't like a financially viable business for me, it represented, the opportunity to really start to flex my leadership and all of that, as well as build bridges for what eventually became the foundation of Black Speakers Network. And so for me, it was more an exercise of, hey, I'm in business school and I graduated and that's all good. But, the job I was working at didn't give me really a lot of opportunity to flex those
Yep.
skills. So
Yep.
it was a practical laboratory, if you will, where I could go out and really see, what I could accomplish.
Yeah, that's really good. I like the words practical laboratory. And I think just in line with that theme of no detour is wasted. And you couple that with practical laboratory, like everything has a chance to be a learning experience. I a long time ago started writing this book for college students, long time ago. And one of the things that I suggested there, and I suggest still to this day, is if you're going to get an internship, try to get one in the area of where you think you want to go. But no matter what, if you're working at McDonald's, pay attention, right? Learn the things that you can learn in that space. You could be learning customer service skills, how to deal with people. So instead of being disgruntled at the counter or instead of being disgruntled answering the phone, some of the customer service people out here that are doing what they got to do to get by in COVID, I feel you. Use it as a learning opportunity, right? We're talking about practical laboratories. I like that. That's
Yeah,
good. I'm
it's
keeping
so
that one, Brian.
you should. I mean, it's so real. And I mean, that reminds me going deeper into my story. I don't really talk about it too much, but my first job ever was, I don't know if I ever told you this. Uh, my first job ever was in retail. I worked at a grocery store chain called Giant, Giant Supermarket. And so there at Giant is exactly what you said. That's where I actually learned how to deal with the general public. Here's the deal. If you want to like if you want to test
Mr. T,
your
y'all, is coming right now.
yeah, like if you ever want to test your resolve, your faith in humanity, your patience, your empathy, go work in a capacity where you are interfacing directly with the general public. I call it gym pop. You know what I'm saying? If you are in a situation where you are interacting with people, like we had
Absolutely.
shoplifters, we had people that were super nice, super mean, everywhere in between. And so that really helped me. I took something from that. And I worked for Giant for a long time. I started working at Giant when I was in 10th grade and I stayed there till like my sophomore, junior year of college. So I was there for a while. I took a sales job. Again, same thing. I was doing telephone sales. And so with entrepreneurs, a lot of times, one of the things we shy away from is getting on the phone and talking to actual customers. And
Yep.
so I was fine with that because I was making 150 phone calls a day after school. So things like that, like you said, no detours wasted. I think the practical uh, exercise of getting out into the world and doing things and figuring out if you like it, if you're good at it, what you excel at and what you're naturally drawn to is really, really important to your point.
And I feel like a lot of people who are, because a lot of people that are kind of interacting with my content overall are thinking about starting a business or kind of, thinking about personal brands in some way, how they can show up in the world, kind of a thing. And I think a lot of times people want like the route, like I want to start a business. Straight line. There's like literally no such thing. Like even in entrepreneurship, I think like the first, I don't know, 7, 8 years of running a business for myself, I thought about getting a full-time job like every 5.5 seconds. And there's a lot of people who are running their companies alongside their full-time employment. Doesn't mean that their business is not successful. It just means that there's not one recipe, right? Like this is not like a standard operating procedure type of thing. So that I feel like the detour thing was good for this day. I must have known this conversation was going to go that way. I didn't. I just
Or
BS.
future cash, you know what I said. Future
But
cash.
anyway, so then from the skills place, I feel like we talked about this a little bit, kind of what you took away from that. What then caused the pivot? So we're gonna bring up this next picture to talk about this pivot. So what then
Hey.
caused the pivot from skills to what is now an internationally recognized speaker development and training brand?
Yeah, Black Speakers Network. So this picture, just for context, was taken in 2019. And so I started Black Speakers Network in 2016. And as you mentioned, we are a global speaker development, training, and empowerment community focused on developing the next generation of Black professional speakers. Now, this organization was birthed out of the need for that for myself. And I think that's a nugget within all entrepreneurship. Like if you've ever watched like an episode of Shark Tank or anything like that, most of the time, great ideas, which become great products or services, which eventually become great businesses,
Mm-hmm.
start as an individual need. And so, although I was, going through Toastmasters, and I actually had put skills on the shelf for a couple of years, and I was working in a corporate environment.
Mm-hmm.
I really found myself not really fulfilled, as well as really wanting to take things to the next level as a speaker. And I remember getting promoted in corporate. Again, I was working for a major staffing recruiting firm. I stayed in the same role for 4 years initially. I was working in back office financial, which again, another skill. Like I know how to go collect the money, so got some accounts receivable experience. I did that for 4 years, learned every feature of Microsoft Excel, but I wasn't really doing, my passion. And so I eventually got promoted to doing training and development. And that was like my dream job. Shauna, I was flying around the country. I was dropping knowledge on people. It was awesome. I went back to school to study instructional design and adult learning at the master's level. And so I was really discovering this broader world. And so to your point, no detour is wasted. At the point where I was like, you know what, I really want to create I really want to go further as a speaker, but I don't
Right.
want to go on this journey by myself.
Right.
And so, with the how did we get here, I was like, okay, I absolutely want to. Every time I do something significant, I'm always trying to figure out who can I bring along the journey. And I
Right.
look back to the people that I've been naturally working with and building this relationship with, and Toastmasters and skills. And I
Yeah.
said, you know what? We need an organization that's focused on the development of Black speakers. And I'm here in Baltimore. I don't know if anybody listening from Baltimore kind of knows the Baltimore market. Baltimore isn't really known for, the profession, like a hot professional speaker market. Like, that's yeah, Atlanta and New York and LA and all
Right.
these other places, DC maybe. So I knew right away that I couldn't do the same model that we did with skills. I had to create a global online community. And so all of those thoughts kind of coalesced together, and that was the genesis of Black Speakers Network. And so I began the process all in one night, Sean. And I know you know about this. Like I came home from work, I sat down at my computer, created
Right.
a website, created the social media presence, created the kind of the mission statement and all of that, and began the process of building this community. And so the picture that we had up is really a significant culmination, because that was actually 2 weeks after I decided to leave corporate America. At that point, I had spent 11 years. I'd driven into a parking lot over
Wow.
5,000 times. And
That
I,
math is scary.
it is crazy. And I was like, okay. And because I recognized that I had kind of reached the limit of what I
Right.
could do as a dualpreneur, trying to build Black Speakers Network and do a full-time job. And so I
Right.
absolutely, that picture was so significant because that was like our first live event. We wrote a book called Speak Up, The Ultimate Guide to Dominate the Speaking Industry. It's behind me. And interestingly enough, I was only going to do one event. We were going to do two. I think we were going to do Baltimore and we were going to do LA. That was going to be
Right.
our two book launch locations. And then when I was contemplating whether or not to leave corporate, I realized that we had members all across the country. And so if we're going to do a book tour, we could really do a book tour. And so two locations, once I decided to leave, we actually ended up going to 13 cities across the United States.
That's
We ended
amazing.
up at Black Enterprise. We went to
That's amazing.
Norfolk. We went to Canada. by accident. That's a fun story. But ended up in Canada by way of Detroit, all these different things. And so it became a really significant moment for me. And we haven't looked back ever since.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I feel like that this is such the highlight reel, right? It's like, I noticed my dissatisfaction. And so I started, a company, or I wanted a place to cut my teeth. And so then I built a company from my degree. And then it's like, okay, well, this isn't really fulfilling all my things. And so one day you know what I'm saying? And it sounds sensationalized when we try to get it into 35 minutes or whatever. But the reality is there were points throughout the course of this, probably up until last week, where it's like, man, I don't really know if this is, everything. Like, and I know that it's hard to pinpoint one of those spaces and places, but was there some point throughout the course of your journey where you really noticed, like, I might not keep going down this same road? Like, this might not be the thing for me to continue.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's, going into BSN didn't come out the gate with, making money. In fact, we didn't even monetize the entire idea until starting 2016. I don't think the current model of what we call BSN Premium membership, which started out as $15 a month, I didn't introduce that until 2 years in. And so, it was a proving ground. And so I didn't have this grand plan of leaving in 2019. And it's very challenging to, spend the vast majority of your physical time doing something,
Yeah.
i.e. a 9 to 5 job, plus commuting, plus all the other responsibilities you have. And then the thing that is super, super important to you, it end up getting like the leftovers, like whatever
Absolutely.
energy you have left at the end of the day, whatever
Right.
money you have left at the end of the month, it gets that. And
Right.
so that's really, really frustrating. Fast forward, another couple moments I can think of is, when I actually decided to leave corporate, everybody always has this grand plan. They're like, you talk to a financial planner, they're like, hey, here's what you need to do before you leave your full-time job. You need to have 6 months expenses in the bank. You need to pay off as much debt as possible. You need to make sure you got your health insurance, your dental insurance, your life insurance, your accidental death insurance. Like, it's like a laundry list of stuff.
Right.
How much of that stuff did I have, Shauna? None. Like, I had maybe 2 months expenses in the bank, but what I had is a track record of consistently showing up for myself and proving that at the end of the day, if you have your back against the wall, the rent is due, food is running out, gas and electric's about to get cut off. Like, I've
Sound like the
definitely have
intro
come
to
super
the
close
good
to having
time.
my car towed. At the end of the day, you figure it out. As an entrepreneur, you absolutely figured it out. And never got evicted. Ended up paying off my car. Student loans, still got to deal with that. But I'm waiting on Biden to do something. But generally speaking, most of the other stuff took care of itself. And
Right.
so, yeah, there's a lot of times where I question myself. And that's why, with this entire journey of entrepreneurship, I don't think it has much to do with like the playing field from an information perspective now is level. Like, everybody
Right.
has access to the same information, the same resources,
Absolutely.
the same tools. It's the mindset and the belief that's reinforced by action that's going to eventually, propel you to where you want to go.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of really good advice in there. So I'm hearing things like, there's no such thing as a perfect plan, right? Like, for people that are thinking about leaving corporate, Brian and I have both left corporate. I left a little while back because I absolutely didn't consult anybody about anything to ask them nothing. I quit. I do not advise it. This is my disclaimer. Every time I mention it, don't go quit your job and blame it on me. Okay. I don't want to hear it. It's not, don't come to my inbox. I'm not accepting lawsuits around this topic. Right. But it can be done, is my point. Like, nobody is destitute. Like, I've never been homeless. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've never, that kind of thing. So I feel like, regardless, there's no such thing as a perfect plan, whether you take the, plan a little bit more planning than the Shauna jumping off of the bridge kind of a thing, or if you just kind of, meticulously work it through. It doesn't matter. No matter what you do, whatever you think you're going to do, it's going to be different no matter what. Right. And I feel like, Brian, we have, between us, like a million years worth of, entrepreneurial and just kind of out here figuring out experience. Is there any, like, if you could concisely give somebody one piece of advice, what would you kind of give them as a piece of advice?
Well, I always like the you and I both have a passion for travel, and anytime you get on a plane, they always start with those like pre-flight safety instructions, and most
Right.
people are looking down, not paying attention. You got your headphones in, but it's like really important information
It is.
potentially that could help you if things go left. And so one of the pieces of protocol that you always hear when you're in the air is, in the event that the cabin loses pressure, 4 oxygen masks will drop down. Take the
Right.
mask, put it on yourself first before you assist your neighbor or a small child or anybody else. And I think that wisdom translates over into my personal ethos so well, because I do believe that you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you could go out and
Absolutely.
serve the rest of the world. And to your point, I actually don't think your advice is that bad when you're like, hey, I didn't consult anybody, because sometimes like a confused mind does nothing. And so a lot of times if you try to consult with every single body, nothing actually gets done. That actually happened with Black Speakers Network. My initial mode of running Black Speakers Network is to lead by committee, because I didn't want to make a mistake. And so I had like the council of 12, and we would meet, and I'll try to get this perspective and that perspective, and try to get a consensus. And absolutely nothing happened for 6 months. When I disbanded the committee,
Wow.
that's when everything went up. And so even to this day, I may get people's perspective, but
Right.
a lot of times it's more so I gotta figure out what's going to resonate with me, because it's my company, my brand. And then also I have to make sure that I stay tuned in with the things that feed Brian. And as an entrepreneur, again, that's another thing when we talk about mental health, when we talk about creating balance, creating boundaries, creating just space. I think that we have to kind of normalize the idea of
Absolutely.
just putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first.
I feel like this is a really good place. And let me just pause for the cause really quickly. Two things. If you could, if you don't mind sharing this with somebody else, for those of you who are watching, to inspire someone, we're hoping that this conversation and the ones like it will help somebody take their next step, because that's what this whole thing is about. We're tracking the steps so that we can see how we got from where we all started to where we are today. I feel like, yeah, there we go. Back to no detours wasted. That's kind of where we are. That's technically the theme of the show. No detours wasted. I'm going to name it, right?
Uh,
But I feel like this is a really good place to kind of talk about this holistic idea. I think a lot of times people want to segment themselves. There's a professional me, there's a spiritual me, there's a social me, there's a private me, and there's like all these false compartmentalizations. When the reality is you're one person. So you are not Brian J. Olds, CEO of Black Speakers Network, and then you're like a separate Brian J. Olds. You're one Brian J. Olds. So the same person who's running this global, corporation has to also eat and sleep and like take care of himself and that whole kind of thing. And I think that this is a really good spot to drop some advice for somebody who is either one, running a business and burning out, right? I'm going to borrow one of Brian's phrases in a second for that one. But either you're running a business and you're burning out because you're trying to treat yourself, your corporate self, your CEO self, as a separate self from the person that needs a break, right? They're not. They're one human. Or you're somebody who's thinking about getting started and you've convinced yourself you don't really have the bandwidth. In either case, it's about taking a holistic look at your whole person. You are one whole being. So if you're running around burning out, here's Brian's sentence: slow down to speed up, right?
yeah.
Take a minute, pull it on back and slow down, get yourself some strategies so that you can move forward. And if you just quite haven't started yet, whatever excuse you're giving yourself, whatever area of your life that you're saying, it's usually always this: I don't have enough time. That's not real. That's not real. You're spending too much time on things that are not actually contributing to your overall happiness and picture of wholeness. So that's a place for you to evaluate, right? To plug in those holes. And I think, Brian, just to your point about mindset, I think that this whole holistic thing gets missed in a lot of cases. Do you feel like you've seen that in your own kind of journey as you've traversed the time, whether it's from interacting with people or just from yourself?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, at the time of this conversation, BSN consists of about 15,000 individuals from all around the world, all industries, backgrounds, levels of education. And, we're all kind of, I always like to say, we're all trying to build a plane while we're flying it. And,
Absolutely.
it's a very challenging thing. Like there's no like hardcore playbook. But the thing that I think that's helped me the most is really, just kind of leaning into like systems. And I think, a lot of times when you hear the word system, some people may think of like a particular technology or something like
Right.
that. I'm not even like talking about that. I'm just talking about, setting up I think your life needs to have like a rhythm. And I think you have to, take control over, what you're going to allow on your calendar, when you're going to, go to therapy, like when you're going to create space in your life for things
Absolutely.
that you love. And so systems do that. And so a big part of my piece, as you know, is things like taking Fridays off, because in a corporate environment you're being dictated to like, hey, you need to be here this amount of time, you need to be logged in at this time, you need to go to lunch at this time. When you're an entrepreneur, all that goes away. And so now you're left to your own devices to structure your time. And part of the challenge with that, I think, to your point about this conversation, is that if you don't plan out your life, somebody else is going to plan it and execute it for you. And so you're going to be
Absolutely.
constantly, pulled and tugged at the whims of everybody else. If you don't have a time where you shut off your phone at night, if you don't have like boundaries in place for social media and, answering like everybody's phone call. Like I
Hello.
think you and I, like we never answer the phone basically unless somebody like, I'm like, who is this? So I think systems and maybe you could use the word protocol if that feels better, but having some sort of like operating rhythm for your life where you are really, really curating, what comes in, what comes out, where you're doing with your physical time,
Yep.
living by your calendar, and just creating the type of capacity that you need to be able to do this. This is hard. Like entrepreneurship is not easy. Like I think it's glamorized a lot,
Absolutely.
overly glamorized actually, and for all the benefits that are there, people tend to gloss over exactly what you created this show for, which is, hey, having real conversations about what it actually takes. And I'm telling you, what it takes is a level of intentionality around what your actual day is going to look like. And ultimately, going back to what you're saying here, the thing that people have to realize is that this is not by accident. Like
Absolutely not.
it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen. And the more you try to split yourself into those silos, I think the worse off the more strain you kind of put on your mental health, because that's again the big part about working in like some companies, is that it forces you to be double or triple minded, and you kind of have
Absolutely.
to what's it called, be like come in with like a mask and fake
Mm-hmm.
name and all of that. Like that can only that's not sustainable. It is
Right.
absolutely not sustainable. So yes, I agree with all of that. I think systems will save you and give you kind of the freedom to be yourself within the
Absolutely.
context of what you're trying to create.
And I feel like I love all of that. And I agree with you. I think that when people hear the word systems, and we're getting some good comments coming in, so I'm going to get to some of those in a minute. But I feel like when people hear the word systems, they're like, yeah, electronic something, some sort of app or whatever that I can. I'm like this. If you are saying that the reason why you don't have time to pursue what feels most important to you is because you're doing laundry all the time, outsource your laundry. That's a system. That is something that every week you call the company. I'm not going to plug anybody specifically, but there are several available, particularly in the Baltimore metropolitan area, that you can call. They will come pick it up. They will do your laundry. They will bring it back. I harp on laundry because that is an area for me. Okay. I struggle in the laundry department. I'm just like, look, we're here to be honest. Okay. I'm just being honest about my things. So I'm just saying, if it's a system, doesn't have to be something big and scary and like super expensive and crazy. Like you would think having a laundry service is ridiculously expensive. It's really not. I think they charge like $50 for the bag or whatever. But if that $50 frees up the mental space and the time on your calendar for you to then make $500, is it then worth it? Well, the answer is yes. But by anybody's math, the answer is yes. and you'll be happier, you'll feel better, which contributes to your overall health because you have more space in your brain. That is the biggest thing for people that are feeling like, I just don't have time to pursue and step into and do whatever. I'm working a job. I got 5 kids. I got all this. I totally get it. I'm not minimizing your life, your struggles, the stuff that's going on. But what I am saying to you is, if one person can do it, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. It's about finding the things that are overloading you and then turning them into systems so that you can then excel. I have a comment here from someone watching on YouTube, John. Hey, John Johnson. And John is saying, look, I got you. I got you on the time thing. I have plenty of time. My problem is I'm trying to find myself. A whole bunch of stuff has changed in John's life. And he's like, I'm just trying to find me in all of this. Do you have any kind of sage words of wisdom for somebody who's just like, I got time, I just don't quite know what my thing is? I have something to say, but I defer to my guest.
Yeah, this is absolutely your lane of expertise. I mean, if y'all haven't heard, there's a whole big brand theory around this. But yeah, Shauna, I think for me, tomorrow, I think tomorrow's Thursday. Yes. So tomorrow is like my last working day of the year. And then, I holla at BSN on January 4th. Like, I think it's very important to, take some time to reflect, to plan, to create, and really get like tuned into the things that are important to you. And so some of the things I'll be doing during that time is exactly what John what may help, potentially is, looking back and seeing like, because in BSN, we have this thing called like the speaker sweet spot, right? So it's because everybody has to kind of start with the basic premise, like, what am I going to speak about? But you can apply this to anything, if you're starting a company or you're building a brand. So the speaker sweet spot is really that intersection between your passion, your area of expertise, and what the market needs from you. Now, the interesting thing about all three of those, passion, expertise, and market demand, it's not like these are static things. Like all three of those, I'm using my fingers because there's like 3 circles, that we typically have on the screen, but it's like these are moving targets. Like your passion that you have now may not be what you were passionate about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Your expertise has increased. You know things now that you had no idea how to do, probably even a few months ago. And the market is absolutely always changing. Like people, consumer appetite. That's why Jeff Bezos and, all the billionaires are so like, sell. Like the people's expectations are constantly shifting, and competition and everything is creating a new environment all the time. And so I think it's important to have some time, and it doesn't need to be like 2 weeks. It could be, an hour, 2 hours where you could really do a deep dive and figure out, have those things shifted for you. Are you still passionate about the things that you said you were? And I always lean into the things that kind of just like light me up. Like if nobody needs to twist my arm to read about like certain topics. Right now I'm all excited about, technology, fintech, crypto. I'm excited about AI. Like nobody has to make me sit up at 2 a.m. and watch YouTube about these topics. I want to do it because I'm passionate about it. And so that's that. And then I look at my expertise. I'm like, oh, I don't know crap about AI, so I'm probably not ready to monetize it. But, doing that assessment will help you kind of lean into those areas. So I think that's super important. And just on the personal side, Shauna, you introduced me to 16 Personalities, is it?
Oh, yes.
Highly recommend it. That in and of itself, combined with what's the other one?
Clifton Strengths Test.
Yeah, those 2 things. I mean, if you got, some time to, and it's not even if you got to, I think it's a priority, because
absolutely,
until you have those things figured out, you're kind of going to be like waffling and, wasting time potentially.
And so, first of all of that was good. The snaps are me trying to stop over talking and going, yeah, that's good. I try not to do that. I try to have some kind of decorum in this thing, but they did tell me I could do whatever I wanted. So I have like 5 things. Everything that Brian said, ditto. There's like one thing that I think in the area of passion, I think part of the problem is that people don't know what they're passionate about. So because that's kind of my space. So what Brian and I do, what we have found is that it's very closely related. But I'm like very good at the bottom level of where people come in. They're like, something ain't right. Now what? And so that's kind of where I come in. And so I feel like one of the things that I'm always telling people to do is to cast the net. This is a fish think, I'm not going to go, let me not use that example, but it's a very cast the net approach. It's like try everything. Try everything. And whatever doesn't feel right, throw it out like yesterday's garbage, and then you lean into the things. I'm on TikTok now all the time. I have found myself squarely landed on ADHD talk. Let me just confess that to y'all, okay? Those of you that know me will not be surprised by that. And so in that space, there's this phrasing that says follow the dopamine. So when you say things like I do anything that lights me up, it's that kind of thought process. It's about follow the dopamine. So as you're doing this cast your net approach, wherever you feel the most alive, do more of that and then see what comes. Do more of what makes you feel alive and bright and happy and smiling for no reason. You're happy tells, right? Like when I eat something really good, you might see my shoulder shimmy a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And nobody else may know that, just the right shoulder. No one else may know that, but I know that bite of food is giving me deep satisfaction. So I'm saying, John, specifically, do everything. Do everything you think you're interested in. To Brian's point, do everything you used to be interested in. And then just let the dopamine, let the light coming up to the top for you be the guide on where to hone in. And then once you do that, to Brian's point, you can then kind of assess those other couple of areas. I won't repeat them again because at some point we're going to sell you a sweet spot training. So just we're not going to give it away for free. You can buy it. It's not going to be expensive. We definitely do that. There you go. I'm invested in the brand.
That's
right. And so then, John, I hope that was helpful. And then Jasmine has a comment here. Jasmine Lee, former guest of the show, one of my absolute favorite people on the planet. Thank you for being here. And her question is, how do we as entrepreneurs not fall into that glamorization, that whole idea that, entrepreneurship is lovely. And I know in Jasmine's case specifically, I'm going to spill her tea. She's like a local celebrity. You know what I mean? Like everybody's like, oh my God, it's Jazz the CEO. People stop her in the street all the time. Hey, aren't you Jazz the CEO? And I think in some ways their thought is, oh my God, how great and how perfect. So how do we as entrepreneurs not fall into that whole idea of, glamorizing even other people's experiences, right? We look at someone else who's further along than we are, like, man, it must have been so easy for them. Why am I not so far as they are, type thing?
Yeah. So for me, I think it's, and great question, Jazz. Yes, she is absolutely crushing this thing. I think in general, there's, in 2021 and beyond, and probably is the case if people listen to this 5 years from now, I feel like we live in a society where we've essentially kind of fallen in love with like vanity metrics. Like, there's a disproportionate emphasis on things that look good, but may not actually be like substantial. And so I think as an entrepreneur, and when I say vanity metrics, I'm talking about things like, you may think of social media, just seeing like how many followers you have and, how much, how many subscribers you have on YouTube and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, we are here to solve a problem. And so I think measuring our success not by, followership or even likes, while those things can maybe, inform like how we're, reaching our audience, at the end of the day, are people being served? Like, are you solving the problem that they came to you for? Right. And I think there's a concept in entrepreneurship called product market fit. And so essentially most companies really, really struggle to find that place where, customers, absolutely trust them and rely on them, and they know their price point, they know the need, like they hit it like right on the head. It's challenging. Yeah. And a lot of stuff right now can really be like a distraction. So what I recommend is, kind of falling in love with the problem, falling in love with, like your customers and, really getting deeply ingrained in that side. And that's the stuff you won't really see. That's the stuff where you're sitting up at 1 a.m., going over like survey data, having like real conversations with customers, capturing testimonials, seeing where people are falling out of your process, like the things that, and one of my favorite activities for Q4, Shauna, has been we use a CRM tool called Active Campaign, and so my team and I have been working over the last couple of months to really start getting the most out of that tool and refining it and figuring out like really who are our members, because it's easy for me
Right.
to sit here and say, hey, we got thousands of people around the world, but who are the people actually? Like, where are they in our actual buying process, and what is driving the decisions that they're
Right.
making? Like, those are the types of conversations that I think we need to really focus on. I don't care if you run a barbershop or a bakery
Absolutely.
or a NFL franchise. Like, at the end of the day, you have to stay, insanely like customer focused and customer solution focused, and that will not allow you to get to fall into that trap. And I think the final piece of that is also too, not getting too how like having awareness of like your competitive environment, but not becoming fixated on
Mm,
it. Like, so many people get so distracted about what somebody else is doing, um, that may be a threat to you, that you lose sight of you're your own unique value proposition. And so you start to like shift away from the things that make you great. And so I think, just kind of stay in your own lane. I don't know what it is about me, Shauna. Like, I was born, maybe it was the fact I was born in West Baltimore, and literally I grew up in an environment where like not minding your business will like get you killed. But like, I am like insanely good at minding my business. Like, I do not care. Like, I don't care what this person's making. I don't care what they're doing. I don't care what people are sleeping with. Like, I just do not care. Like, I'm focused on the stuff in my purview, and then I just keep it moving.
I feel like okay, so I chuckle break for that. I do not care. We need to put that on a shirt tomorrow. But and I know I need to wrap up. I'm going to bring it to a close. But it's a couple things in there that I think are really interesting to say. I always tell people this: every follower is not a customer, right? Like, so somebody having 1 million followers does not mean they're making $1 million. Like, that's not what's happening. Also, people can buy followers. Please don't do that. Thank you very much. And so I think that that's really good. And the other thing that I have is like a practical application thing is very much in line with what you're saying, Brian. If you're on social media and you're like scrolling through something and you're following a competitor that maybe used to inspire you, but is now kind of like causing you to feel like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. And that internal narrative starts playing, unfollow them. I give you permission right now to unfollow any account that is not currently in this moment giving you inspiration, motivation, or like learning in some way, shape, or form to do things, even if they used to. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's okay. Everything that used to serve you doesn't have to be serving you in this moment, in this time. So, in the interest of kind of wrapping this up, is there anything else, Brian, that you wanted to give the people, say to the people, just in the way, and then after that, we'll do some plugs on where they can find you and all your stuff.
Yeah, well, first of all, great conversation. And again, I just really appreciate you creating this space and creating this series for people to be able to plug into. Our tagline at BSN is "Speak Up" with an exclamation point. Your audience awaits with a bunch of ellipses. Don't know how grammatically accurate it is, but generally speaking, our desire is for people to speak up. And I believe there's a certain number of people that are, called to speaking, and that's absolutely fine. But I do believe right now that there are individuals who are literally praying for the knowledge and information that you have. Like, you're walking around with, solutions in your head, your way of overcoming obstacles, your way of helping people solve their marriage, to get out of debt, to, create businesses, to build their brand, like whatever it is that you do, you're walking around thinking like, oh, it's no big deal. And somebody else, probably within, a few square miles of wherever you live, is like, man, like, if I only had this piece of the puzzle, I'd be good
Love
to
this.
go. And so I just really would encourage people for 2022 and beyond to, speak up. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean you got to be, you know, running around as a keynote speaker 180 days out of the year, like some of us crazy people in BSN. But what it do means is that you have an audience that you're called to serve, and the faster you embrace that and figure out who that tribe is and how to super serve them, your income, you will never have a problem with money because you're always going to be serving people in a way where you are compensated, and people are looking to make sure that you are fine. So I just want to encourage people to speak up, find your tribe, and continue to kind of take into account like the oxygen mask and everything we talked about so far on this program, because I truly believe that there are people right now that are just waiting for you to get started.
I love that. I love everything about that. Dr. Brian J. Old, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being my third guest. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your energy and your time and your expertise and wisdom. And I'm sure everybody watching is just all the better for having heard from you and your journey. Give us all the deets on where we can find you and what we can buy from you. Y'all hear that? Go buy something.
Yes, everybody buys something. We're really easy to find. Black Speakers Network. I normally tell people to just Google us because there's only one Black Speakers Network. But if you need some extra help, you could find us at Black Speakers Network. Pretty much on everything. Instagram and Facebook is kind of where we hang out. LinkedIn as well. And then, of course, if you are a speaker or you're an aspiring speaker, or somebody that should connect with us, feel free to join. We have blackspeakersnetwork.com is the place where you can find out more information about who we are, what we do, and our main objective is making sure that current and aspiring speakers get connected to the training, resources, as well as speaking opportunities to, again, connect with the audience that you're called to serve. So as we always say, Shauna and BSN, keep speaking up. The audience awaits, and I'm hoping to see a lot more people on stage in 2022 and beyond.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you. So let me just bring this thing on in. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for sharing. If you have not shared already, please do so. There's still time. There's a replay. We're not taking this down. It's going to live here forever. So just make sure you share with somebody that you want to inspire if this has inspired you. And even if it hasn't, it will inspire somebody else. So share it anyway, right? Make sure that if you're on YouTube, and if you're not, go there. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be posting more things there as we go into 2022 because I plan to speak up because my audience, it'll wait. You know what I'm saying? You can also go to my website, theshaunak.com, where you can sign up to receive emails from me. I want to tell you about 3 really quick things that I'm doing right now and moving into the next year. So if you are thinking about building a personal brand, I have built the perfect thing for you. It is called Big Brand Theory. It is a place where you can step by step get a guided process to build your personal brand and get yourself out there into the world. Even if you are a speaker, you need a personal brand. You can't just be out here running around. You know what I'm saying? And the second thing I want to tell you about is something I built for people that are looking to build a traditional business. It is called The Community. You can find more information about that on my website at the Shauna K. But what you'll find in there is a well. Now, listen, I had to roll my eyes a little. It's years and years of experience and teaching that I have put together in one place for you to know how to start your business, brand your business, build your business, and the master's classes are going to help you grow your business as you're going forward into the world. So that's part 2. Part 3 are my VIP days. Whoop, whoop, 2022. I have VIP days coming to you. I can tell you right now, these VIP days, even right now in like the beta testing, they're already changing businesses. They are changing lives. I'm so excited to bring those to you. If you are not quite sure which one of those places you fall in, go ahead to my website, theshaunak.com, scroll down to the bottom, and you can schedule a consult with me. It's called a coffee chat. And depending on the time of the day, it could be coffee or something else. If you know me, just, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, schedule a 10-minute coffee chat with me, and I will put you in the right direction to make sure that you are getting on the path to live your dreams. Y'all, this show fills my heart every single time I do it. I appreciate you. You visionaries, you dreamers, you go-getters, you believers. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you the next time.